Larry?
Yes, Christine.
Hi, I'm on a foreign computer. I can see only you. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get a gallery view. But you can hear me, right?
I can hear you and I can see you. Yes.
Okay,
I can
well,
see you too. And it says Christine Fitzpatrick on it.
now I can see you, Liz.
You'll see who's ever speaking.
I'll see who's ever speaking. Okay.
You can adjust it in the top right under view.
I know, but
When
for
not,
some reason, that's,
it's an apple. It's not the usual. Okay.
I have a view up in the top right corner with 9 squares next to it, and I click on that and have a choice between speaker view or gallery view.
usually what it looks like to me too, but the last time and this time I
Could
couldn't.
not get, we
There's
can't.
nothing in the right hand. Full screen versus exit screen, full screen.
Oh, you might have it in full view, and where it basically takes up the entire screen.
Yeah, it says exit full screen, but when I exit full screen, it doesn't bring it to the gallery.
Yeah, when we exit full screen, it doesn't, the gallery.
That just means it either shows in large view covering your whole screen or small view, but there's also an additional thing that gives you choices of gallery, speaker. So if you're seeing the people as they're speaking, you're in speaker view.
We know this.
I've
We-
used
we-
Zoom,
But
for some reason, when this time it is not stop incoming video. I cannot, and it's almost always in the upper right-hand corner, but I cannot get.
Whoa, we have a lot of participants tonight.
Yes, we do.
Christine, is there anything on the screen that just says the word view?
Mayor, do you see that there are 2 attendees with their hands raised
No, I don't.
already? Paul Farnan and Anna have their hands raised. Oh, man, now they don't.
Okay, good, because we'll have public comment at the end of the meeting. All right, well, I believe it's 7 o'clock, so I think it's time to call this meeting to order. And ask everyone to join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and panelists can unmute yourselves whenever you need to say something. First item of business is the minutes of our October 12th meeting. Were there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, could I have a motion that they be approved as submitted?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
And that was Trustee Baskin, seconded by Trustee Cormos.
John.
Yes.
Any
Trustee
discussion?
Raymond.
Oh, Trustee Raymond, I'm sorry, seconded by Trustee Cormos. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda was supposed to be a special report of our tree survey. I heard earlier today that the final report has not been, the report has not been finalized, and they've asked to have that delayed. So I assume it'll be on our agenda at the next meeting. On to mayor announcements. Excuse me, I do have a couple of announcements only tonight. Number one, the paving is done for the season. DPW was hard pressed to get it all done before the weather turned, but they did. And we have a very good working relationship with several other municipalities who provide help back and forth with each other when they have big projects. And so I'd like to express the village's sincere thanks to the following municipalities who helped us with the milling and paving process. The town of Ballston, the town of Malta, the town of Stillwater, the town of Greenfield, the town of Milton, and Saratoga County. They all chipped in. They allowed us to move large quantities of stuff very rapidly and efficiently, and it wouldn't have worked nearly as well without their help. So the village appreciates that very much. Second, we have a workshop tomorrow night. It was just recently scheduled, so I'm not sure if people are aware of it yet. It's the next workshop on the enabling legislation for the planned development district. That's tomorrow night at 6:30 on Zoom. It is open to the public, and you'll use the same login information that you used to get into this meeting tonight. Same meeting ID, same password. And that's, of course, the reason that the board hasn't received invitations yet, is I can't send them until I go into this meeting and edit it to get it ready for tomorrow night. So I'll send those probably tomorrow. No motions will be made, no business will be conducted. It's a discussion only meeting, but everyone's welcome to attend. Moving on to the treasurer's report. Our treasurer is home tonight with a very sick infant and was not able to join us. So we'll cancel the treasurer's report and move on to old business. The first item of old business is the Village Hall bid. I was informed Friday by our engineers that we are required to officially reject that bid. For anybody who doesn't know, our budget for that project was projected by the engineer to be $260,000. We got only one single bid, and that bid was for $740,000. So clearly we can't award that bid. Could I have a motion to reject the bid for renovations to Village Hall?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Baskin. Any discussion?
Do we
Um,
have any
well-
breakdown of what that $740,000 was for? I mean, because we had a number of components.
Yeah, I can tell you the basic outline of the project. I don't have any of the details in front of me, nor do I have the bid in front of me.
Okay, well,
It
I
was-
just wondered if you did.
It was to repair the retaining wall on Bath Street that holds the sidewalk up, to remove those stairs, to dig up the sidewalk between the wall and the building and install drainage to drain the water away from the building, along with drain lines to carry water. Repair the front steps and some other details of structural work, fill in the two vacant vaults under the sidewalk on Front Street, and restore the facade of the front of the building and the Bath Street first floor part of the building. So it was a multi-faceted project. And as we discussed at our last meeting, I think the engineers are suggesting at this point that we take it apart into smaller pieces that are more likely to be bid by a single firm rather than nobody but the huge companies that can do everything, and take it one piece at a time. So we'll.
I would appreciate if you could share, you know, their breakdown of those items if they did that, so that we can look at sort of the relative costs of each part.
I'm happy to make available whatever information we have.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
What are the next steps as far as, do we know what's the higher priority of those components? Is it the
Yeah,
drainage?
I had those discussions with the engineers and we're waiting for them to get back to us with a breakdown.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion?
Well,
So-
I think we haven't planned the next or the rescheduled the workshop and infrastructure that was canceled yet, right?
Correct.
And it doesn't include things like this building, though. It's water and sewer mostly.
I think it was open-ended, so
Okay.
talk about buildings too.
Just thinking, as we think about these large expenditures for this particular building, to talk more broadly about the future of this building. I mean, it just scares me that $740,000 for a handful of things that wouldn't make the building, just basically keeps the building from falling apart further, but doesn't make it more usable necessarily. And so, you know, as we talk about spending money on the building, also talking about a long-term plan maybe for that building, one way or the other. We could make time for that at some point.
Yeah, we can certainly include buildings as infrastructure. If there's no more discussion, I'll ask for all in favor of the motion to say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Next, I'd like to call on Village Administrator Jen Moskowitz. She was charged with receiving and summarizing the comments that came in from the public on the curfew issue and the cannabis issue, as we discussed at our last meeting. And I see that Jen is in the attendees list, so if I can find her, I will promote her to a panelist so that she can give that report. Wow, we're up to 52 attendees. That's an incredible number, and thanks to all of you for showing up tonight. We seldom have this many audience members, and we appreciate your interest and your attendance. So I've just made Jen a panelist, and you'll need to turn on her camera if she's got one.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I can't
Okay.
see you, though.
All right, hold on. Let me see if I can find that part.
There you are.
Can you still hear me though?
Yes.
Okay, as long as I got both parts.
Thank you for joining us, and please tell us what you heard from the public.
Okay, so last week we put out on Facebook and our website that if anyone who had comments or issues with either the curfew or the cannabis issue, to email them to me. I've collected them over the course of the week. I'll start with the cannabis issue first, just because it's the smallest one. Out of the entire week, including today, we've had 4 people respond to the office with their cannabis concerns and issues. We have 2 people out of that 4 who were in favor of opting out completely, 1 who was in favor of opting in, and then 1 who was in favor of sale but not consumption. So it was pretty straightforward right down the board. The curfew issue, as of this morning, only had 10 people that had communicated with me on their concerns and comments. By the end of the day, we had almost 20. So in total, we had 14 village community members who are in favor of keeping the curfew exactly the way that it is. And we have testimonials to how supportive they are of that. We only had 2 in favor of abolishing it completely. And then we had two also who were in favor of having a conversation about keeping the curfew in some form, but maybe changing the time to something a little later or changing the age to something a little younger. But other than that, those were the comments and concerns from our constituents.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from the board?
Yeah. Do you know, I don't know if how much information was provided. I kind of scanned through them. I know you sent them and I scanned through them briefly. Do we know how many of those folks actually have teenage children?
I don't, unless
would
they
be
mentioned
impacted
it
by
in
this?
unless they mentioned it in their email, I wouldn't know their specific
Okay.
demographics. And the majority of what I do recall from reading all of those letters was that most of them grew up or have grown children who have gone through that curfew process.
Okay.
I think
Thank
there were
you.
a couple that had young children in it, but the majority was, I've lived in this town for 20 years, my kids grew up with this curfew, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I will move Jen back to the attendee list and thank her for joining us tonight.
No problem.
All right, moving on with the agenda. We announced last meeting that there would be a public hearing tonight on the cannabis regulations. Just to summarize briefly, it is now legal under New York state law to possess and consume cannabis in the state. The village has no choice on that matter. The state also allows establishments to sell cannabis products, and it allows establishments to sell and consume on site cannabis products. Those are two separate things, and the village has the option of opting out of either or both of them. If we do nothing, then we automatically opt in, and those things are legal in the village. If we opt out of one of them, we do have that authority. If we opt in, we also have, through our zoning, an opportunity to regulate where they can and can't go. So the big issues for the board are whether they want to opt out of either or both of those provisions by the end of the year, which is our deadline for doing that. And that would require a local law, which does take time to put together, put through the process, pass and file with the state. So it's a very timely matter. So with that background, if anyone here wants to speak in the public hearing, please raise your hand and I will recognize you and allow you to speak. Okay, now a couple of hands are going up. Now I just have to find them. All right, Nick Fernia. Oh, please give your name and address when you speak for the purpose of the minutes, please. Nick, you're allowed to speak and we can hear you.
Okay, cool. I just want to make a point of saying that I think prohibition of these businesses, just for examples, for the sake of example, let's say sales, prohibition of these businesses sort of prop up like an illicit market. And I think we're not really benefiting anyone except for the people that do sell cannabis illicitly. And I also want to make a point of saying that the political and financial red tape of opening one of these establishments is already so high. The cost of entry is so high to get a license to sell cannabis in the first place. I feel like it would almost be that's already sort of prohibitive enough for people that want to sell this.
Okay, thank you very much. I probably should have said in my introduction also that there are tax implications in that there's a fairly hefty local sales tax involved with these establishments that would come to the village, which we would not then get if we opted out. I need to find Nick again.
Need his address, please?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
3101 Galway Road. That's my home address. I also own a business, Nomad Coffee and Crepes and Knockabout Coffee Roasters. We're in Ballston Spa as well on Milton Avenue, 80
Thank
Milton
you.
Ave. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'm still hunting for you.
It's at the top of my list.
There he is. Takes a lot longer to hunt through a list this long. All right, the other next hand I see is Rory O'Connor.
Can you hear me, Larry?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I would simply like to say that I think that the tax implications alone justify the village considering opting into this. There was a fellow that spoke at the last meeting regarding the risks of allowing on-site consumption, and I tend to agree with him. But I certainly think that we would be wise to opt in. The rumor mill has it that the Stewart's at the corner of North Line Road is already under contract to become a dispensary, which I don't know if that's true or not. As I said, it's a rumor mill, but for the village not to have at least offer the opportunity to entrepreneurs to operate the dispensary under the relatively strict laws that we know New York will establish, I think would be folly. And I'd much rather have the tax revenue than not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Did you get that address, Terry?
Oh, I'm sorry, 199 Milton Avenue. Yep.
Okay. And I don't see any other hands at this point. Oh, there went one. Okay, Michael Ragabarone, you're now able to speak.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Ragabarone. I live at 112 Malta Ave, in Ballston Spa. I would just like to throw my voice behind allowing the both sale and consumption in the town. I think that the availability of cannabis will be fairly widespread over the next, 6 to 12 months once these dispensaries start popping up in many other towns, and it won't prevent any consumption in the town. It would only send residents from our town to other towns to purchase, and the tax revenue from those sales would go elsewhere instead of coming into our town.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This thing's giving me a hard time. All right, I will now recognize Keith Lewis.
Hi, Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street. I'm in agreement with the gentleman who just spoke. I think that we can't stop the flow that this direction has gone, and we've seen it. I watched it in California as it went medical and then as it went recreational as well. I think some of the concerns on site use may be unfounded, or I should say, I think they're unfounded. When I spoke to the businesses downtown, I didn't get the sense that they were of concern. And I don't think that the statistics back it up as far as any type of people going to a facility like that and getting stoned out of their mind and then going off. I think that type of recreational use is devoted to at home with a younger group that wants their video games and so forth available. And having seen it in Amsterdam and in other places, I think that it can add an element that is actually beneficial to the area. We're a walking community. I don't partake myself, but I'm sure at different points when people come to visit and so forth, if we had a lounge, someone that might be visiting might be interested in walking down. And I think they'd probably use the other businesses as well. So that's my opinion. Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Keith. I'll now recognize Bob Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't necessarily agree or oppose to it. I think what we need to do is kind of look at all aspects. You mentioned the tax basis with it. I don't know if that was mentioned prior. I don't believe it was because I've been to most of these meetings. But I think we need to take a look at a bigger picture. I understand that some of the board's members' concerns as far as people walking around the village high and drunk. But I gotta be honest with you, they're gonna do that regardless. They get it here, or they get it somewhere else. So that shouldn't matter. So in my opinion, we should possibly capitalize off this opportunity to get some more revenue in the village. And go from there. I mean, it's an opportunity that we should address. That shouldn't be voted on tonight, I don't think. I think we need to do more research on this, get more information on it. One other thing I wanted to mention, it's probably in the wrong public comment, but you mentioned you guys went out through social media and the website to get people's comments. And I noticed you guys had a very low response. There's got to be some sort of avenue you guys can go elsewhere besides just social media and online, because it doesn't reach everyone in the village. A lot of village residents aren't on social media, and they don't look at your website because they don't have internet. Yes, might be some older folks, but there's also some younger folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. And where'd it go? And it looks like I clicked on Lori Acey, who also had her hand up at the same time I clicked on Bob Bush. So Lori, you're allowed to speak.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm supportive of dispensaries that actually sell cannabis. My concern is on the lounge end, and two things I'm curious about. What are the shop owners' responsibilities to, I think there may be none, but to monitor or address any kind of issues that might come up as a result of someone, getting super high or being outside or causing trouble, or no different than a bar perhaps, but like, so what would be the difference between just a lounge and say a bar, as far as the owner of that shop having to monitor or address issues? Is there any clarity on that?
I don't personally know. I've heard discussion, but I'm not sure that the answer is available to us yet. I think the state is still working on its guidelines. And
Okay.
Our attorney is nodding her head.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that's correct.
And I just am curious as well, what participation piece that our police department has in this discussion, if any, and if there's been any feedback from them.
Good question. I will discuss it with Chief Bush.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lori. All right, I think only one more hand and then we'll move on. And that looks like Nick Fernia again. So you're back on, Nick.
Hi, I just wanted to make a point of saying I do agree with everything that Keith Lewis said. I agreed with some of the stuff that Bob Lewis said. I'm 100% in favor across the board for this. I mean, as someone that sells alcohol to people, I can tell you it's really not that hard at my establishment. As someone that sells alcohol to people, it's really not hard to monitor as far as the on-site use. But really where I'm coming from as far as why I want Ballston Spa to be opted in is because we're looking at like property value here. Like the past speakers said, if they're not getting it here, they're going to get it somewhere else. And they've been getting it here irregardless. If they do consume weed and they do live in Ballston Spa, it's not hard to get. It's pretty abundant, you know, it's been abundant up until this point. So I'm just saying, I just wanted to iterate that we are talking about property value. People that live in Ballston Spa are driving to Massachusetts, you know, right now to get stuff. And people are comfortable doing that because it's an hour away. I mean, once other towns legalize sales and consumption of cannabis, no one's going to be coming here, going to the dispensary, supporting other businesses around that dispensary. So I just feel like we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot. And I just wanted to make a point of saying that I really don't think the whole not in my backyard approach makes a whole lot of sense. So I just wanted to respond to past speakers, their comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I see no more hands, so I would like to thank everyone who commented during our public hearing. We appreciate your input, and we'll move on to new business. Could I have a motion? Could I have a motion that the budget transfers be approved?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Trustee Cormos. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Budget transfers are approved. Could I have a motion that the Ballston Spa Business and Professional Association be granted permission to conduct the Ballston Spa holiday and tree lighting on December 3rd, 2021 from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. They've turned in their permit form. We don't have their proof of insurance yet, but we know they have it. They just have to get us the form. So that'll obviously have to come in before the approval is final. Could I have the motion, please?
Make that motion.
Motion by Trustee Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Baxter. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
No. Motion carries. The Ballston Spa House and Garden Club reached out to me last week or the week before and volunteered to take responsibility for maintenance of the gardens at the Old Iron Spring. I very much appreciate that generous offer, and I would ask if there is a trustee who would like to make a motion to authorize that activity.
I'll make that motion if it's okay. I am a member of the club.
I'll
Probably
make the motion if it's not okay.
Yeah.
motion by Trustee Baskin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Raymond. Thank you. Any discussion?
Just to note that the Ballston Spa House and Garden Club is the original designer of that garden many years back, and you know, is very interested in revitalizing and turning it into more of a garden that reflects native plants, which I think, and educational type of garden.
And to be honest with you, I didn't know that they weren't still doing it. So, but I'll be glad to have some more attention paid to it.
I just also make this comment, Liz, isn't it correct in this that they're going to be taking care of maintenance, weeding, planting, and that kind of thing, but the watering is still going to be done under the contract with the BSBPA. Did I express that correctly or understand that
Yes,
correctly?
yeah. The BSBPA manages the planting of the annuals in various spots by getting businesses to volunteer to do the planting. The village, has a fund which pays for the flowers and pays the watering. But like the garden club is proposing, BSBPA manages that process. So they will continue managing the watering in all the gardens.
That's what I thought. Thank you. I just wanted to be clear about that. Thank you.
Excuse me. I believe trustee Cormos has to recuse herself, has to abstain from the vote because she's on the House and Garden Club.
Oh,
Okay, in that case, we need a vote by poll. Madam Clerk, would
Okay.
you poll the board?
Trustee Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
trustee Baskin,
Aye.
trustee Raymond,
Aye.
Mayor Wilbright,
Yes.
trustee Cormos.
abstain.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. And for I think the third meeting in a row, we once again have no items on the consent agenda tonight. So our department heads maybe already bought everything or who knows. But anyway, we can move straight into trustee liaison reports. Does any trustee have a report for us tonight?
Yes. The mayor already stated that we wrapped up paving. We do have several locations throughout the village where whether it's either water or sewer stormwater infrastructure that's been dug up and still needs to be resurfaced. That we're kind of running tight on time because most asphalt plants close November 15th. And we currently have run into a staffing situation. So I've spoken with Jeff and we're going to look into alternatives so that we can make sure those things get wrapped up before the asphalt plants close.
Good, thanks. Any other trustee liaison reports tonight?
I do. I wanted to advise you that the library is required to do a plan of service. They have completed it with through the library board and a lot of staff work and also input from a resident. They did a survey. They're going to file the report as required, and they want to make a presentation. Andrea Simmons, who is our library director, I'm requesting, she will be at the first November and do a presentation. So I just want to make sure that I remember to ask that she get put on the agenda. So that is November, for the village meeting on November 8th.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm making a note.
Okay, thank you.
And that's for a presentation on specifically the service project?
Yes, the library plan of service, the community plan of service, yes. And it had we surveyed the community, so it was a lot of interesting and good information, and it's going to hopefully direct what the library, what the library does for the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other trustee liaison reports tonight?
I can share that Trustee Cormus and myself went to a senior lunch, the senior community center, and it was a nice event. We did ask if the people there were favorable or against the idea of on-site consumption of marijuana. And there are only 5 or so people who actually live in the village out of about 75, but it was strongly against, for what it's worth. Most people raise their hand against on-site consumption. So just want to share that. In other news, the school has allowed or agreed to allow the ice skating rink again for this year. It might be the last year at the Bark Fields. me and Amy Jenkins are going to meet with Bark in November to talk about some of the details of how that will work. And I've been in conversation with Kathy Lee. She provided a list of discussion topics for what might be necessary when or if this moves to BACC. And so I'll share that. I'm still talking to her about that, including staffing questions. So it's moving on.
The school's decision to allow us to stay at Eastern Avenue included their decision to continue to pay for the insurance?
No, they have asked us to take that over, so they're happy that we are talking about doing that. We talked about last meeting actually putting that on the agenda as for a vote this meeting. I don't know if we're want to do that at this meeting. Was it $250 or $275?
I don't have my notes with
There's
me.
a resident who has offered to, pay the insurance fee. So.
All
but
right. I think we can do that next meeting, can't we?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think that's okay.
I think we also, when we do that, could we have a little more information? It's not just paying the premium, which is very generous of this individual, but it's also who is liable in what situation, which was the sticking point last year. So when we talk about this, I
provided
just want
signage that we would post, at
Yes.
least relieving us of partial liability.
We talked about creating a sign that says no skating without parental supervision and some other rules. And also the volunteers are going to create a protocol, safety protocol, who to call for what issues, how to manage the warming building where people go to warm up, how many people on the ice at a time. So that's all going to be part of the protocol. And specifically the $250 or so was to name the school as an additional insured since it's their property. So that's what that was about.
Okay.
All right. Can we move on to other business?
Well, if I may, I'm sorry, I was having trouble with my computer. So are we going to, under other business, talk about where now that we've heard from the public and we've heard from Jen, are we going to talk more about where we stand or what we're possibly going to do in terms of cannabis at this meeting? Possibly I missed that because I was fiddling with my computer.
We certainly can.
Yeah, because don't we have to make a decision pretty soon? Because if we don't make a decision and decide which way we're going and what we're going to do, cannabis, both dispensaries and on-site consumption lounges will be allowed.
Right.
So I
if we
think
opt out of either, we need the attorney to start preparing the local law.
I think we have to know how the board is going to vote and how the board feels before we direct the attorney. No, I just want to know.
Definitely.
All right. Okay. All right. So
And
that'll be.
we can make that the first item of other business if you want. The board has discussed this a couple of times before, and my sense was that the board was not interested in opting out of dispensaries, but I don't think the board specifically has discussed lounges. Is that a correct evaluation?
Yep.
Well,
does anybody want to add to anything that was said previously about dispensaries or say anything about lounges?
I think.
Anybody changed their mind about dispensaries? I think we all pretty much said we were in favor of them.
Right.
Well, actually, we said at the last meeting, if I may, people were saying that they were undecided. One of the reasons why I think we all need to make a statement about where we stand. That's what's in the minutes from the last time, that we're undecided. A lot of, I was the one who made a definite statement. Okay, so I'd like others to, I'd like to clarify my statement and allow others to say where they stand.
All right, you want to go first?
Certainly. Okay, I am, And thank you for everybody who attended this meeting. Thank you for everybody who gave us input. Thank you to everybody who has spoken to me over the last 2 weeks about their concerns. I remain in support of dispensaries, but I oppose on-site consumption. My concern, it's not moral, or, I have nothing against, I'm very pleased over the fact that cannabis is being allowed, but I think for me, the tax, and I understand that there are tax revenues, but I also think for me, allowing the lounges is I am not persuaded by the argument that it's inevitable and it's everywhere. That argument does not necessarily does not hold water with me. The other thing that I say is that I always am concerned. I think about this. My thing with the lounges is also, it's a different view, but it may be the same as or opposed to the business owners who say it's good for business. I actually think that this is not the kind of business that we want to necessarily attract. And I also think in terms of, if you allow something, you have to be able to enforce it. And for example, I'll give you an example. If you're aware of the cigar lounge that exists on the corner of Broadway and Spring in Saratoga Springs, at some points, that's allowed, and it's a lounge of its type, and that's fine. But eventually, at some points, those folks migrate outside. So then the people are in a situation where they're walking, there's opening and closing of the doors. They're walking through somebody else's secondhand smoke. And then I noticed that they end up going back in, because I think that there have been some concerns about this activity taking place on a public street. So my concern is also always, whatever law you pass or whatever you allow, you have to have the resources and the will to then enforce it. So I see this not just as a situation where we would allow a lounge, but we would have to enforce any kind of infractions within the vicinity of it that might occur. So I am opposed to lounges on that score as well. So that's my position, and thank you very much.
Trustee Baskin, just because you're next to her on the screen, you want to go next?
Sure. Yes, I think that the sales does make sense. It is a situation, I believe, where we can get some revenue, and people in that situation will go somewhere else and just get it, and makes no difference to the use of marijuana, whether we do it or not. But we can get some sales tax from it. When it comes to on-site consumption, I'm a little trepidatious about it. It is a new element in the village that we haven't had before. I guess, and I sympathize with Trustee Fitzpatrick's concerns. I guess my initial approach would be that we do not necessarily have to be the leader in this, that we could keep our options open by opting out for the time being and seeing how other communities adopt to this and what the impacts are. From what I've heard about places in Massachusetts, in the beginning, it was a little bit of an issue, but now it's just another business like any other, and really has no additional impact. But I don't mind not being one of the first people or first villages to have on-site consumption. So on the other hand, it's very important, I think, to all of us to listen to the community. If the community is by and large saying we need to move forward with this, and we think it's a good thing for the village and will lead to positive development in the village. If that was really the overwhelming sentiment, I would be open to moving forward with it. If sentiment really is split, I am very comfortable saying opting out for the time being, seeing what happens around us, and reserving the option to opt in at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
For-
Trustee Raymond, yours.
For
Sorry.
I just want to make a point was you're for opting out for lounges, but not for dispensaries. That's what you said in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. I'm okay with the dispensary piece.
Trustee Raymond, you're next in the line of pictures on my screen.
Okay. Well, based on what the other trustees said, if we are going to opt in for dispensaries, which I'm fine with, if we were going to entertain to opt out, we need to pass local legislation that prohibits smoking of all types on public streets and property. That includes cigarettes. If that's what if we want to stop the outside use of it, because if you don't have an on-site lounge, people can just step outside like they do at a bar or restaurant and smoke. The other thing that seems to be being left out of the equation, there's no way that we can actually prevent on-site consumption of edibles. So, I mean, we can't prohibit somebody from eating something. At least I don't know of any legislation where we can prohibit somebody eating something. And I don't know how we would regulate that anyways. So I think where we're at is, I think we need to rely on New York State, which is developing the laws, and more than likely will develop laws that are much like bars and restaurants, and that it's the responsibility of the owner and the person serving to make sure they do not overserve. And so with that in mind, I'm for dispensaries, and I'm also fine with lounges. You know, if we're going to serve alcohol, we might as well serve marijuana, because alcohol has been proven to be more dangerous than marijuana. So.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Cormos.
Yeah, I was one of the fence sitters, but frankly, after listening to the public speakers, I'm leaning more towards opting in for on-site. I think we need to do a good job of looking at the zoning, so that, it isn't potentially near schools, et cetera. I mean, it would be in our commercial zone, but, we have schools in our commercial area. The location of it, we can regulate that. I think even if we do allow on-site, we still need to look at the smoking regulations. I would prefer if we don't allow any kind of smoking on public parks, and that would help a lot for, the instance, where somebody leaves the place and continues consumption. So that would help us regulate that. I have a feeling New York is not going to be giving that many licenses to start. So, we may not even get one. The city of Saratoga is a whole lot more likely, or Clifton Park, to if the number of licenses are small. So I'm leaning more towards yes, because I think the revenue opportunity is rather large, particularly with on-site consumption. And frankly, I think most people know one of the side effects is when you smoke marijuana, you get hungry. And it will benefit our eateries. So
so you're saying you're in favor of both?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I also am in favor of both. I don't think in a 1.7 square mile village, banning something here is going to keep it out of the community. And I, as other speakers, trust that New York State is going to come up with sufficient regulations on the consumption end of things that they'll cover for us. So based on what I just heard, I'm not going to ask our attorney to prepare any legislation opting out. If you want to discuss it again,
Right.
next meeting we can, but I think I'm here.
Steph's workload just got lighter.
If anybody decides they want to use their mind and put it on the agenda for the next meeting, just let me know. But for now, I'll consider that we've made our call and we're not opting out. Moving on, I put Trustee Baskin's name on both of these because he's the one who sent me the language and asked me to put it on the agenda. I didn't put in a seconder. So we have a motion by Trustee Baskin to have Village Hall staff document all calls related to complaints and service requests to share with the village board. Documentation will include name, address, phone, date, issue discussed, and whether a response is requested. Documentation will be sent to the board on a timely, regular basis. The mayor will work with staff to determine the best method for implementing these reports and present to trustees for review and approval. And I'm asking if there is a second for that motion.
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Raymond. I will begin the discussion by saying that trustees are not authorized to supervise staff. Only the mayor is authorized to supervise staff. I believe this motion sounds to me like an attempt to supervise staff, which I don't think trustees are able to do. I also think it looks like a motion telling me how to do my job. And I'm not sure how the separation of powers falls out in New York State, but I can imagine the uproar that would occur if Congress tried to pass a law requiring the president to do something. And we are in an analogous situation in that I'm the executive and you're the legislative. So those are my thoughts. In addition, I would not like to add the extra work to the staff because I see on a day-to-day basis how much they already have to handle with. So those are my 2 cents worth. Any other discussion?
Well, yes, thank you. I appreciate those comments. The reason I asked to put this on, and I thank you for putting it on tonight, is I see it as one of a number of initiatives that we've taken as a board collectively to really improve the communication between the public and the board. And so this is one more initiative in that line. So in terms of, you can see by the turnout tonight and the outreach to the community on what their opinions are, that's a somewhat new initiative or strengthening of efforts to get public input. And you can see it when we instituted regular reports by department heads. That's going to happen so that we can learn from them and hear how their jobs are going and what ideas they have and ask them questions. We've talked about getting Zoom access to everybody even after we start meeting in person, and having that Zoom in access meeting info posted permanently on the website. And this is in line with those efforts in that people might be surprised to know that they could make a call to the town hall about an issue, a complaint, a service request, which is sort of the flip side of a complaint. Something needs to be done or wants to be done. And the village elected officials may never hear that they have made that call. And they may intend for us to hear that concern that they have, that complaint. As the policy makers who are able to make decisions on budgets and policies impacting the village, when someone calls in, it would be really helpful if we knew what kinds of calls are coming in, how many people are calling, about what, what parts of the village are calling about different aspects. So for example, since a lot of people called in about the water bill, I would not have known that if I hadn't reached out to Jen and had a meeting with her, and she talked about the kinds of calls that are coming in. Same with information with how many service requests DPW gets on a daily and weekly basis. I had no idea. And I think it's important that we do know those things. And the reason I put in some detail here is because I think we need detail to respond to these things and have a sense of what's included. Though the part of this, I tried to make an effort to not micromanage and step on your feet, Mayor, too much by saying the mayor will work with staff to determine the best method for implementing these reports. So not saying specifically how frequently, exactly everything that'll be in them or what the method is of collecting that information. But at the end of the day, I do see this as a policy that then gets implemented by you and the staff, but we should have some input and review of the policy and how it's going to play out. So I think it often is unclear where policy ends and administration begins. I think Congress and the president have those issues all the time, and it's not surprising that we wouldn't be crystal clear on where one starts and ends. But I brought it to the meeting as a motion because I do see it potentially as a kind of policy addition to how Village Hall, how they operate. And I think people in the village would appreciate knowing that when they call Village Hall, that call will get through to their elected officials, which is not the case now. That is not guaranteed now. So that's why I put it on here.
Yeah, just to respond quickly to 2 points. When something comes in that is addressed to me and the board, I do scan it and I do email it to you. So you do
Yes.
get something that comes in that's addressed to the board.
Yeah, this is really about phone calls. You're right. When people email in, it will come to us if it's addressed to everybody. This is really about phone calls, which might not never ever get to us.
And I can tell you, every time we send out water bills, we get a lot of phone calls about water bills. And every time we send out taxes, we get a lot of phone calls about taxes. And those things are pretty predictable. And
I think, we're not talking about a routine, inquiry. We're talking about issues that, should rise to this level so that, when Bob Kavanagh said that they were getting a lot of angry calls, that was news. We should have known that. We should know what
I told you that when you passed the motion.
No, this was the actual.
We're going to be outraged. They're going to be calling up angry.
If you tell us we're going to be, and then it actually happens. So I think as far as maybe it sounds a little bit micromanaging to, include name, address, phone, etc. But, and we don't necessarily need, a report with the names of the person, but, some sort of tabulation that says, gee, this week we got 10 calls on a complaint about, the fence down in Iron Spring or whatever. And just as a point of knowledge, or something else has happened in the village that we might not be aware of. And you've gotten a lot of phone calls on that, not the routine stuff, but, the stuff that, like Ben said, the electorate, the people that elected us expect us to know about these things. Expect that there's communication between Village Hall and us.
And Mayor, I'd like to add, there has been situations where individuals have reached out to me separately outside of the normal village channels because they have sent something and they're wondering about the status of it. And I just think that, if that process happened through the village, when you guys know that, and then we know if there's something, that we can contribute to it. I still think 100% I agree with you. It is the mayor's job to administer all the employees and all the staff. And it's also up to the mayor what action is taken as a result, and how the staff is implemented. I agree with that 100%. That is your role. That is not our role. I do think if we just could be kept in the loop on things, and maybe it's just simply what you're already doing now, is you send emails that are addressed to us. If a phone call is of a policy nature that would require a board discussion, maybe that phone call can be transcribed into an email and sent along to us, just so that we're aware of it. I don't think this needs to take some sort of formal report. I think we're getting informed through that channel already. And I think that it's just a matter of, as Ben said, the phone call aspect, the folks who don't use email, we kind of are out of the loop on that. So.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yes. I'm listening to what both Sean and Liz are saying, and one of the things that I'm hearing Liz say is that we don't have to know about every single thing, but that's not what this motion says. What this motion says is that we will be advised of all calls related to complaints and service requests. This, I don't disagree with the intent, but I think that it's overkill. And it is because what we're saying here is that we want all calls. I also have to say to you that I think this documentation request, name, address, phone, date, I think this is overkill. I think one of the things you might want to consider, first of all, I think that may be somewhat of an invasion of people's privacy. I'm not sure that when they call or come to Village Hall, they want all of this information written down. They might not even want people, others to know about your complaint. If you're doing it this way with documentation on all to include name, address, phone, date issued, discuss whether a response is required or not, you're creating, I could be wrong about this, but I think you're creating a foilable record. So, one person comes in and complains, and then the neighbor that they complained about for some reason comes in 6 months later and says, I want to see all of these complaints, and files a FOIL request. I think that it is the way it is, and you're creating this in perpetuity so that you're not just creating it for now, but for this administration, but you're creating it because you're putting it into a motion, and it's something that you can't get rid of. So I would say what I would like to see is that this would be changed, that we talk about calls or requests in the aggregate by category, and that we decide, that the mayor and the staff decide what those categories are. Like, for example, and that we get this report on either a monthly or a quarterly basis, where we are told, yes, we had water and sewer bills and we got, 150 calls, and they were all about, that they, routine matters for water and sewer. I think that that's much more manageable. I think it's more realistic. I think it's not busy work. And I think it doesn't invade people's privacy and create a foilable, excuse me, I can't say that word. My apologies, a foilable situation. I don't want to see, for example, upstairs on the 3rd and 4th floor of Village Hall, we had bingo records from 1946. I do not want to see these logs 20 years from now with people's names, address, dates, and complaints, in some box upstairs, because the records management program that Village Clerk O'Connor and I are going to put in is not prepared to handle this. So that would be my suggestion, that we modify this and then keep in the part about the mayor will work to determine the best method for implementing these reports, but that we talk about reports in the aggregate by category, and that they be reported on some kind of monthly or quarterly basis, whatever somebody else thinks is workable or doable. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
May I ask a question? How are these calls logged now? I mean, is there some sort of record that your staff keeps when somebody calls in? Is there just like a pink slip or, you know?
Yeah, there's a pink slip put in the mailbox of the person who needs to address the issue.
Is there a copy that's kept?
No.
Okay.
So
I
if it's a police issue, it goes to Chief Bush. If it's pretty much a DPW request, it goes to Jeff Gories, and pretty much everything else comes to me.
Good. Well, just as a thought, you know, get one that has a copy and, you know,
Well,
that at the end of the month or whatever.
So this is the conversation I was hoping the mayor and staff could have together about how to implement this, because there are different ways. I appreciate what you're saying, Trustee Fitzpatrick. I do not intend this to be all calls. You have to read the whole sentence, which is all calls related to complaints and service requests. So it's not about what's the address of your building or what are your service hours, but things that could potentially have policy and service implications. And I would be interested in what complaints are coming in. I don't see the collection of name, address, and phone as any more intrusive than what we ask for at public hearings, where people come and they have to give their name and address. They have to speak publicly. If they want a response, it is possible for someone to call and say, I don't want to be public, but my neighbor, you know, there's different ways to implement this. There are, and there should be nuances about what issues come in and how they're handled differently. And that would be something that the mayor and staff would have a conversation about. And we could also participate in that and give our 2 cents. But the suggestion was to let the mayor and staff sort of begin that and start that conversation. The spirit behind this is that I think the board should know something about the number and the kind of complaints that come in. If someone wants a response, we could all take turns responding in different ways depending on what the question or issue is. That was suggested by a member of the public a few meetings ago. And I think it's okay to ask people for their name and address when if they're calling a public entity for that, and they could be told that, you know, this is going to be a public, do you want this to be a public comment or not? And again, I think the mayor and staff could figure out which comments are public and which aren't and have a whole protocol around that. So I think that's manageable. I don't know exactly how it would be implemented, but I do know I'd like it to be auditable, so it's not just a bunch of check marks. Okay, X number of people talked about this or that. There should be some paper trail there. So those are the kinds of big issues, but in terms of the details, I would think the mayor and staff would figure that out. And I could see this motion at the end of the day potentially changing in terms of wording, but I would like to see the intent remain. After all the details are worked out, some specifics about what the calls have been.
Well, from a procedural point of view, because I'm interested in moving on, we have a motion that's been made and seconded, and it's on the floor, and we have a couple of options. If the board wants to discuss this further at its next meeting before proceeding to amend the motion, we can table the motion till the next meeting. If the board just wants to have me go away and talk to the staff and come back with something at the next meeting, then the mover and seconder can withdraw their motion and second and the thing disappears. Or third, we have to vote on it because it's a motion that's been made and seconded and it's on the table. So what's your pleasure? If somebody wants to make a motion to table now, it would be in order at this time.
And the second option you gave, will we table it also?
Withdraw the motion and ask me to come back with
a
recommendation next time.
I would lean toward withdrawing my second, in the idea that you would go back to your staff and find something that's going to work for them in an efficient way. But that would allow us to be in the loop on things that would either affect finances or policy.
And would the mover also be willing to withdraw the motion?
I'd be fine with that. I'm grateful that you're willing to talk to staff about it. I guess I see it as sort of going backwards where you're going to present some very specific proposal when the intent here really was to give more. I mean, I know there's some specifics here, but really a general direction for and indication that a report is desired. But if the board is more comfortable going in the other direction where the mayor and staff come up with something specific and then I guess we vote on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with that. As long as we're moving in in some direction towards this common goal, I'm okay with that.
Was that a statement? Yes, I withdraw the motion.
Sure.
Uh,
With the assumption this is going to be revisited next meeting.
with the request that I discuss it with the staff and come back.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so the motion is withdrawn. And we'll move on to the other motion under other business. Motion by Trustee Baskin, once again lacking so far a second, to add a board response item to future meeting agendas. This would be placed immediately following public comment. Board members' comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. No public responses will be permitted. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, as I have said repeatedly, the board is free to respond to public comments anytime it wishes. When the public tries to get into an extended debate or discussion with a trustee who has responded, I do my best to cut it off. But I guess I don't see the need for this, given that you can comment on anything you want to.
The reason I suggest this, and you're right, it's not as if response isn't never happens now or is not allowed. I thought that by having more structure, providing a period of time that doesn't exist now at the very end of the meeting, that has more structure to it and rules of engagement, it would actually help trustees feel less inhibited about following up on public comments, because currently there is the significant risk of spiraling escalation and also back and forth, that it can be very time consuming and potentially unending. I know you try to keep it top on that, but if there's a set of rules that are just understood ahead of time, I think that might make your job easier too. So I think it would actually promote, we've been asked repeatedly by the public, and again, this is part of I see this as part of that larger initiative that we're all undertaking to be more responsive to the public. People have asked that after the public comment period, and I'm not sure where 3 minutes came, we should have the same time that the public has. If they have 2 minutes, we should have 2 minutes. They have 3, we should have 3. I'm not asking for more time than what the public has. But after the public comment period, people have asked for our response. And sometimes I have felt personally inhibited from responding because I know it's not going to be something that the public commentator might agree with and might feel the need to respond again. And so it's part of me just says, okay, I'm just going to listen. So anyway, I see this as a way to facilitate board engagement whilst continuing to have some structure in that period.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just feel like I agree with Ben in the idea that this provides structure. I think it doesn't, it kind of takes some of the pressure off the mayor. It inhibits or prohibits back and forth, which tends to escalate. And I think if we can prevent that, we can have a much more clear discussion. So I think it's a good idea to have an opportunity for trustees to respond to comments, and also respond to comments that not necessarily were that night. If they were even from a previous meeting where there were comments and a trustee felt they wanted to take some time to collect some information, it would give them an opportunity to respond at that point. I realize now we could do that in other business or new business as well, but it might be good to have something, and it sounds like in recent public comment that the public would like that as well.
I agree. I mean, the public has, some of the public has asked for us to answer questions. And I think that'll, like Ben and Sean have said, will give us a sort of formalized period of time to do that. It also gives us the opportunity to correct misconceptions. If someone talks and has an idea and has heard something or whatever, and it's, needs correction, then we can use that time to do it. I think if implemented and enforced, it will actually make your life a little easier, and there won't be the back and forth.
Trustee Fitzpatrick, you're the only one who hasn't spoken. Would you like to?
Well,
You don't have to. I was just giving you the opportunity.
I don't know. No. Mm-mm. No.
And
I don't have additional to add.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. In that case, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. I think we better, in this case, poll the board as well, Terry, since we had a split vote.
Oh.
You're muted. I can poll the board.
I just also make one of my comments here, if I may. This is the one thing that bothers me, because it's this: no public response will be permitted. It's that last line. It seems to me too chilling, a little bit authoritarian, and that's one of the reasons I opposed it. So that's my comment. Okay. So, okay.
Now I'll poll the board. I vote no. Trustee Fitzpatrick?
No.
Trustee Baskin?
Yes, I just want to say they have their public comment right before this. That's why it was there. And the idea is to avoid back and forth.
Trustee Raymond?
Yeah, you're basically,
Yes.
motion allows you to have the last. Okay.
Trustee
All
Corman?
right.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 3-2. At this point, I don't believe there's any other business to come before the board. I would like to make a statement, and I would appreciate being allowed to make it uninterrupted. I usually speak extemporaneously when I come to these meetings, but tonight I actually wrote this down, and so I'm going to read to you, and I hope you're not offended by being read to. Earlier today, I submitted my letter of resignation as mayor. effective at the close of business this Friday, October 29th, 2021. My unproductive relationship with the Board of Trustees is the sole reason for this decision. Since the March election, that relationship has become more strained and adversarial. The trustees block me at every turn, and their attitude towards community members and village staff is not always consistent with my idea of how the Village of Friends should operate. They also appear to have very different priorities than I do. My priorities throughout my term have been the financial health of the village first and foremost, with our water and sewer infrastructure, streets, equipment, and buildings as other dominant needs for the community. Our top priority has got to be providing the basic services that our residents need, such as making sure their drinking water is adequate and safe, making sure their sewers do not back up into their basements, making sure they can get to their house, from their house to the grocery store after a snowstorm, making sure their houses don't burn down and that they have police protection when they need it. To do these things, we have to have equipment that does not break down. We have to have fire trucks that are not 35 years old. And we also need enough staff with the knowledge necessary to accomplish all of these goals. And finally, we need places for those employees to work and to store the equipment, and we have an obligation to make sure that those facilities are adequate and safe. And obviously, without good financial health, none of these things would be possible. In contrast, my fellow board members' priorities appear to be bike lanes, sidewalks, crosswalks, street trees, and parks. And I am certainly not saying that any of those things are bad. I support every one of them. I am a walker. Sidewalks and crosswalks are important to me. My wife is a cyclist. Bike lanes are important to me. I have a PhD in ecology. I certainly do not hate trees. And I'm a gardener who loves to spend time in parks. But what I'm saying is that these things are not the highest priorities for the village in its current circumstance. Just recently, the trustees overruled me by a 4-to-1 vote to spend $225,000 of the village's hard-earned fund balance on these important but not urgent needs, rather than on our basic priorities. Trustee Cormos continues to act unilaterally, implying that she represents me or the board, in clear violation of state regulations specifying that trustees have no authority to act except as 1 vote out of 5 in setting policies and laws. This infringes on my authority and has caused me several awkward and difficult situations. The farmers market fiasco of this summer is one example. Trustee Baskin continues his attempts to micromanage the day-to-day operations of the village and the village staff, an example of which we just heard. These attempts encroach on my authority as mayor, which is also clearly spelled out in state law. And to be honest, lately it's been a constant battle just to be able to do my job. I want to state very clearly that my negative comments do not apply to Trustee Fitzpatrick. She has been a model trustee and a great village servant. I particularly appreciate her leadership in records management, health insurance and other employee benefits, labor negotiations, and COVID-19 response. She is the only one of the 4 who consistently asks me what she can do to help and then does it. She also appears thoughtful in her deliberations on important issues and listens to advice and public opinion. Thank you, Christine, for your service. In running for mayor in 2019, I stated that my top priority was solving the village's financial crisis. I am very pleased to have accomplished that priority. In addition to closing the books and filing the mandatory state reports for 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, I have also taken the village from a $300,000 deficit to a $2.5 million surplus. 200,000 of which was taken as income in the current year for use on the Village Hall project. I accomplished all of this through careful and responsible budgeting, along with conscientious oversight of expenditures. And I did this while keeping tax increases minimal, while doubling our paving budget, and while advocating hundreds of thousands of extra dollars each year to the replacement of obsolete equipment. The board had no hand in this other than approving my budgets and approving the expenditures. Indeed, they were unaware of most of it until recently, when Trustee Cormos learned the size of our fund balance by reading the summary of our annual financial report. Her response was to tell the board that I had created an excessive surplus and that the board needed to rein me in by passing a policy limiting the size of our fund balance. Well, when you have a water tank that the state has told you needs to be replaced at a cost of $2 million, a 100-year-old sewer system that experiences sewer line breaks multiple times a year, 35-year-old vehicles and buildings that are falling apart, I do not think that 2.5 million is an excessive surplus. Just this year, we've had several vehicles that we've been unable to repair with replacement costs in excess of $100,000. Our two main pumps, drinking water pumps, have got to be replaced at a cost of approximately $160,000. How would we pay for these essential things if we spent our surplus on trees and invasive weeds? What will go next, and how will we pay for it? In my opinion, we as a village are still in damage control mode. We need 2 or 3 times our current fund balance before I will feel secure about our future. When I took office, we had 19 outstanding loans. We were near our debt limit because our poor financial condition required us to borrow money every time a sewer line broke. I have since consolidated that debt into one loan at a much lower interest rate and reduced our debt service obligations dramatically. We're still not in a position to be able to pay for everything that is likely to break down. I have continued to build our fund balance because I don't know what's going to break down next, and we need to have enough in reserve to pay for it when it does. I seek every year to replace the items based on the staff's best guess at what's in the greatest danger of failure. But we still need cash reserves to cover the other things that we thought would make it through another year and didn't. When Liz recently announced to the board that we had a $2 million fund balance, the scene was like kids in a candy store. We could spend it on this, we could spend it on that. I'm sorry, but to fritter it away on niceties when we still lack necessities is the height of irresponsibility. We have a great little village with the potential to become a superstar village, but we have to prioritize our essential needs over our future wish list. My other top priority when running for mayor was the redevelopment of our downtown. We have far too many vacant parcels and abandoned or underutilized buildings in our central business district. By redeveloping these properties, we can increase the vitality of our historic downtown, provide new businesses to serve our residents, increase our attraction as a destination for folks from surrounding communities. And also, this is our only means of increasing our tax base, given that our residential neighborhoods are essentially all built out. In 2019, I initiated an economic development planning process that involved hundreds of residents and gave us a blueprint for our downtown. I worked closely with the owners of key properties, key downtown properties, to encourage them to help us realize this vision. I brought in outside resources like the directors of state development programs, both to meet with the property owners, but also so that I could convince them that Ballston Spa is a good place to invest state resources. At that time, I was feeling pretty optimistic. Property owners were actively planning for development of those properties, and word was getting out that Ballston Spa was open for business. At least 5 major regional developers called me to ask for tours of our downtown and discussions of our goals. I worked with Lisa Nagel to develop an application for the state's Brownfield Opportunity Area grant, which could greatly assist those efforts with significant funding. The last piece that I tried to put in place was revisions to our zoning code. It's not bad, but it's quite dated, and I thought some tweaks here and there might be helpful to the property owners who were trying to develop their properties. The board refused to consider that. As a backup, I asked village attorney Stephanie Ferradino, whose specialty is planning and zoning law, to produce draft PDD enabling legislation. This would have allowed developers to propose concepts that might not completely comply with our zoning, but it would leave the board in complete control of whether to accept, modify, or deny those proposals. The board refused to consider that, and then brought forward a proposal for a moratorium on development. Fortunately, community outrage prevented it from being adopted. However, it certainly undid most of my work in convincing the property owners that we wanted to support them in developing their commercial properties, and to outsiders who no longer believe that Ballston Spa is open for business and a good place to invest their money. This destruction happened in a span of weeks following months of my hard work. After the moratorium was shot down, the board decided to reconsider PDD legislation after all. However, they refused to let our attorney, who is on retainer, do it for us for free. Instead, they decided to hire Lisa Nagel, who I like and respect very much, to do it for an additional fee. The first question Lisa asked when I called her about this was, why on earth isn't Stephanie doing it for you? The draft of this legislation is the subject of tomorrow night's workshop that I announced earlier. Tomorrow, 6:30 on Zoom with the same ID and password that you used. I think Lisa and Lawrence, her colleague, have done a conscientious job, but I think the board has added so many mandates and restrictions that, in my opinion, it is likely to discourage downtown redevelopment rather than promote it. If I were going to be on the board when it finally comes up for approval, I would probably vote against it. Thank you for your patience with my frustrations and listening to this tonight. I just want to share one more story before I move on. My first year in office, I really wanted to patch and paint the front of the village hall. It's the public face of our village, and it's a spectacular building right in the middle of our business district. And I frankly think its rundown appearance is a disgrace. The board refused to approve that work until I had a complete structural and environmental evaluation on the entire building. Well, that took a year and cost us some $40,000. And it did result in a list of things that needed to be done, but nothing that would have precluded painting the facade. Then the bid documents had to be prepared. That cost us another $20,000. And as you know, the engineers had estimated the work to cost $260,000. I had put $200,000 in the budget from the fund balance, in addition to the $100,000 grant that we have from Senator Tedisco's office. So I had budgeted a total of $300,000 in case the project ran over. And we finally opened that bid about a month ago, and there was only one, and it was $740,000. And you heard us reject it earlier this evening. And here I am 3 years later, and the front of Village Hall is still not painted. So enough about my frustrations. I hope you now see why I have to resign. But before I close, I would like to tell you what I've enjoyed about this job. I have enjoyed working with the village staff. We have many employees who do a variety of jobs, and they are people who love this village and want to help make it better. They have been responsive, conscientious, and a pleasure to work with. I thank them for their kindness to me and their service to the village. I'm also very proud of the administration that I'm leaving in charge of routine village activities. Our treasurer, Julia Smith, is a bright and capable individual and has at this point mastered municipal finance. Our new village administrator, Jen Moskowitz, who you saw earlier tonight, is a quick learner and a very competent person. I am pleased to be leaving the village in their care, and I know they will keep our operations on an even keel, no matter who the next mayor is. I have also enjoyed serving our residents. I want to thank so many of you for your kind notes, emails, phone calls of encouragement and support. They have meant a great deal to me, and they've kept me going. I also want to thank the many, many residents who volunteer on behalf of our community, serving on boards and committees, acting as first responders, and doing countless other important services. You make us what we are, and I have tried very hard to be the mayor that you deserve. Pardon me. Finally, I want to single out a few individuals for special thanks. First, my running mates, Pete Martin and Rory O'Connor. I agreed to be on their ticket because they were running out of a love for the village and the same vision I had for its future. And I wish they had been elected, but they were not. Many people who campaigned hard and lost an election would have thrown up their hands and walked away mad. Pete and Rory confirmed what I already knew. They love this village and they want to serve it, and they have both stuck with me every day of these last 2.5 years, serving on committees whenever I asked it and doing innumerable small and large tasks to help me as mayor. Second, I want to recognize former interim treasurer Mary Lasky. When I took office, we had no treasurer. The prior board had done a search, but that was unsuccessful. I did the 2019-2020 budget myself in Excel, by the way, in case anybody didn't know that. Then Mary Lasky stepped up and volunteered to come out of retirement and act as treasurer until we could find a permanent one. She helped me drag Village Hall into the 20th century with Wi-Fi and emails and phone extensions. And I think we'll worry about the 21st century later. Thank you. And she got our municipal accounting system up and running. She stayed until we judged that Julia was ready to take over. And without Mary's help, it would have taken me much, much longer to straighten out the village's finances than it did. Third and last is Bob Kavanagh. Bob has been at the front desk pretty much 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for the last 2.5 years. He's answered the phone, he's processed the water accounts, he's done anything and everything that needed doing. And he's shared with me his vast knowledge of the operations of this village that he learned from his many years of service as a trustee. My job would have been so much harder without Bob's counsel. Thank you, Bob. There are many other people who have helped me in the village during my time as mayor. I will not list them now or even try to, but I hope that I will see them and thank them personally over the next weeks and months. In closing, I just want to say it has been an honor to serve as your mayor. I believe I'm leaving the village in better shape than I found it. I apologize for not fulfilling my entire four-year term, but I find my current situation untenable and I must step down. And that's the end of my statement, and I will now open the meeting for public comment. We'll use the same system we used earlier.
Mayor, if I could, for the public comment, I would just want to thank you for your service. And I really wish we had a chance to discuss your concerns further before you publicly resigned. But I just want to say that having worked in 2 different administrations as a trustee, it was a breath of fresh air to have you here. And I think you've done an amazing job. And I want to, again, just thank you for your service, and I appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you, Sean. I'll
If
call
I
on
may,
Anna.
I'm shocked and saddened by your decision. If I've offended you, I apologize. My intention has not been to offend you. My intention is very much like yours, to try to do the best for this village. If you look at most of the minutes of meetings over the last 2.5 years, we've agreed on topics, but you know, the things I've worked on is because I've put in the work on them, and they were opportunities, and they were passed by this board. As far as I remember, in 2019, Sean, myself, Jeff, and the engineer put together a list of DPW capital improvements, which now we're finally holding a workshop on those issues. We didn't have the money. We recently obtained hardship status, which will put us in excellent position to get grants and money for infrastructure. It's not one thing or the other. We can do more than one thing at once.
All right, I'm gonna.
I'm very sad. I don't think I can convince you to change your mind, but I thank you for your service too.
I've recognized Anna.
I also would like to thank you for your service, and I also am sad to see you go. And I really appreciate what you've brought to this position and what you've accomplished.
Anna, you're.
Hi. Mayor?
As always, please give your name and address for the record.
Hi, Anna Stanko, 2 Kent Street, Ballston Spa. Actually, Mayor, I am floored, but by the recent 3 comments, apparently the trustees did not hear anything that you said. A couple of things just to backtrack. Liz, when you talked about micromanaging the village office, you hit the nail on the head. And Christine, you're right on. These guys do not have time to log every call. I have a staff in my office and they let me know if there's something important. I do not need to know every phone call that comes in. They are all adults. They are responsible public servants, and they can take care of business without having to let me know of every single phone call that comes in my office. That is absolutely one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. And I'm sure you all got my letter about the curfew. Sean, just because your kid was stopped after hours when he was out when he shouldn't have been does not mean that the curfew should be changed. One kid in the whole village gets stopped, and now the whole village, you want to change the curfew for the whole village because of your one child. Again, wake up, you guys. Like I said in my letter, I live on Kent Street. We have a large walking population down here in the summertime going to Kelly Park. And if they're going to Kelly Park after 10 o'clock at night, they're only going for one reason. I appreciate the police presence. And I think of all of you needs to start listening. You've hired a village attorney. You don't let her do her job. You've hired there's a police chief. You don't let him do his job. Last week, you were criticizing Julia on some of her accounting practices. We have people. Stop trying to micromanage their jobs, for Christ's sakes. Wake up. We love our village and we love Larry Woolbright. And this is a complete travesty to lose him. Thank you, Larry. And I appreciate your service, but I completely understand where you're sitting.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your comments. I'll recognize Bernadette Van Danza. Bernadette, you're able to speak. I think you're still muted, though. You have to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. using the phone app version. Bernadette Van Daense, 9 Mechanic Street. Just to touch on a few things, Larry, thank you so much for being our mayor. It has been a challenge that few could have even attempted to take on. You really brought our village out of the brink of financial distress, and with little help from your trustees. So Larry, thank you. Our business community is very thankful for you. You have gone to bat for us. So I just wanted to express that thanks. Also, just to touch on the motion from Baskin tonight, it's disappointing that you guys as trustees can't sit and just listen to your public. We are the people that you are there to serve. And it is a disappointing precedence that you guys have to constantly have this last word on everything. So I'm just expressing my disappointment. But thank you to Larry Wilbright. Very appreciative. Thanks.
Thank you, Bernadette, for those kind comments. And I will now recognize Ray Otten. Ray, you're muted now also. There you go.
Yep. Couple things. Larry.
Yes, please.
Ray Otten, 16 Middlebrook Avenue.
Thank you.
Larry, you and I have had a number of conversations. I 100% get where you're coming from. No doubt. I see the same challenges working on committees that you're seeing as mayor. It's very, very tough when you have people of one mindset, and that's all they hear. That's all they hear. As far as the phone records and things like that Mr. Baskin's trying to put in place, you guys need to trust your department heads. When they get calls into the office pertaining to service problems, service requests, whatever it may be, that's what you pay the department heads for. They take care of those problems. Up to this point, they are taking care of those problems. When they have problems that they cannot take care of, that's when they should be getting in touch with the liaisons, not previous to that. You don't need to be involved with all the minutia. That's their job. The office runs extremely efficiently, but it's going to be more challenged by this. They don't have the time. As Christine said, you have a clerk in this village that does an extraordinary job. And by the way, I want to thank all of you for participating in the benefit that was put on for Terry. I'm sure you all bought your dinners and participated in that, or maybe gave through the GoFundMe page. Best of luck to Terry with that. We all love you. But you guys need to listen. As Bernadette said, you need to listen to the village residents. I said this at the beginning of right after the election this past spring. Sean, Ben, you did not lose the election, but you didn't win it. There were more votes against you than there were for you. It just happens there were more candidates. Thank you, Larry, for your service, and hopefully you'll still stop by the ambulance squad, and when we build our new building outside the village, you'll come see me up there too. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. You can count on it. I see another hand, and I'll recognize Paul Lasky. If I can get the cursor to, there we go. Okay, Paul, you're on, and please give us your name and address.
Paul Lasky, 67 McMaster Street. Larry, I want to thank you for all you've done and working in the face of an adverse board. I share your frustration, and for similar reasons with the board, I also resigned from chair of the zoning board. I'm really saddened to see you leave, Larry. I think you've done a great job with this village. And I wanted to let you know it's truly been a pleasure working with you and appreciate all that you've done for the village. So thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Paul. And please share with your mother my comments earlier.
I will. I actually texted her right now to let her know. She'll appreciate that, Larry. Thank you very much.
And I will recognize Sean Mulvaney.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
Sean Mulvaney, 126 Fairground Ave, Ballston Spa, New York. First, I'd like to say thank you very much for everything you've done, Mr. Mayor. With all the no help that you had on the trustees side, you did a great job. Going forward, I'd like to make an announcement. I'm here to speak about the 27th annual Ballston Spa Thanksgiving meal. We are very happy that we're able to do it this year. Last year, due to COVID, we couldn't do it. So we're very happy that we're able to make some, be able to host something positive in our community and to go forward. This year, again, it will be November 25th from 12 to 3 at Union Fire Company, 319 Milton Ave. We are asking for more volunteers. Wednesday, November 24th from 5 to 10. Peeling potatoes, carving turkeys, other prep work. Any kind of help would be appreciated. Volunteers are needed Thursday on Thanksgiving. Again, it's like we are so happy that we can do this. So with that, we're going to need help with line help, waiting tables, prep line, kitchen help. Pie donations are always needed, which can be dropped off to the Union Fire Company. Anyone wishing to make a pre-order for delivery, please call Jody Mulvaney at 518-937-8647. And again, Mr. Mayor, I want to say thank you for all your dedication to the Village of Ballston Spa. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you and the other guys for the Thanksgiving dinner, because you always do such a wonderful job and it means a lot to the village. And I'll recognize Pete Martin. Pete, you're still muted.
Yep. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me now, Larry?
Yeah. Name and address.
Peter Martin, 20 Chesterwood Court. Larry, you've done a great job, and from the bottom of my heart, I know how hard this has been for you and on Meg. It's been a nightmare. I know how much you've worked on this, and you've had very little support. So I thank you, and a lot of our residents thank you. Ben, they weren't here for you tonight, by the way. I think we were all in support for Larry. That's why so many people are here. Just a couple things. You talk about wanting to do what the residents want, and Christine, most of this does not pertain to you, but you kind of follow the lead a little bit. The water fee, I went to 3 separate meetings, told the whole board by a 4-to-1 vote, our committee decided that you should not put a fee on the water bills. The only one who wanted it was Trustee Cormos, but you passed it anyway. So not doing what the community wants. I mean, the same thing with taxing our churches, our fee on our churches. You want to put a fee to our non-for-profits churches. You want to put a fee on people who don't have sidewalks. Again, our committee said 4-to-1 not to do it, but because Trustee Cormos wanted to do it, you guys all voted to do it. You got to stop and listen. I'm asking you to listen and tell the truth. You're going after the police department because one child is out too late and all the facts weren't all out there. Now we know all the facts. It's just not right. You're not telling the truth. I mean, we got a moratorium. You wanted to shut down the whole village. At the moratorium, we have farmers from outside the village screaming at a board, calling them liars. Well, they didn't tell the truth, and we moved the farmers market out of Wiswell Park. I mean, how can this keep going on? Why are you doing this? I just don't understand. You're not helping any of the residents. You're working against us all. So Sean, you tell us not to be excited, but we are, because we don't get any response from any of yous. Like, you want us to talk to have the police chief come in and have other people come in and other members come in and talk to us. We want to talk to you and see what you're thinking about. Why are you doing these things? I mean, you wanted to shut down the whole village and a moratorium. That's crazy. Then go to one of your PUDD meetings. You're worried about, not you, Sean, but Ben and Liz worried about being sued because you're putting so many things in there. The lawyer is telling you can't do it, but your first question is, well, we can't be sued, right? Well, if you're worried about being sued, then you're doing something wrong or you're going to hurt somebody. So please start thinking about how you want to react to our residents. You're not helping us. You're hurting all of us. You're like, it doesn't make sense what you guys are trying to accomplish. We have so many infrastructure issues. It's unbelievable, and you're not addressing them. Larry, again, thank you very much. I'm sorry I talked so long, but I had to get this stuff off my chest. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pete. I will now recognize Gina Morosi.
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, name and address.
One moment. Okay, sorry, I was getting feedback. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I wish I could say I didn't see this coming, but I saw it coming. I'm surprised you lasted this long, to tell you the truth, under the conditions that you've had to work. We've shown everyone that the finest, and I'm saying finest sarcastically, of party politics, because that's exactly what's been going on here. My first question is, I'd like to know when we're going to go back to in-person meetings. Can anybody answer that question for me?
The state has allowed us to choose to have remote meetings, I believe, through January 15th. The board can decide at any time it wishes to have in-person meetings, but it is allowed by the state at this point to have remote meetings until January 15th.
Well, that's all well and good until January 15th, but I just want to make the point that on October 13th, Trustee Cormos was in person at the Town of Milton board meeting, in person. On the 14th, she was in person at the Milton Democrat meeting at the factory. On the 21st, this past Thursday, Ben Baskin and Liz Cormos were at the Ballston area seniors meeting in Milton, in person, no masks, in front of our most vulnerable members of the community. Why is it that they're afforded the luxury to be in person wherever they want to go, but us, the residents or the taxpayers of the village, have to sit home on Zoom? It's not fair. The rules are not for thee and not for me. That's not how this works. If you're going to attend meetings in person, then you damn well better let us attend them in person too. Number two, the phone log. It doesn't matter what phone calls come in, as long as they get placed in the hands of the people that take care of them. Ben, you're not the mayor. You don't answer those calls. You don't tell employees what to do. You don't tell department heads what to do. That's not your position. You're not the mayor. Read the handbook. And as far as this last word on public comment, what is that all about? You get to speak all during the regular meeting and say whatever you want to say. We're afforded 3 minutes to get our thoughts and support out. And then you're going to have the last word on it, and then we can't speak back. What is that? What is that? Where are we living right now? Larry, I appreciate you. I appreciate the fact that you put up with this garbage for as long as you did. Thank you for your service. I wish I could convince you to stay, but I like you too much to try to do that to you. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morosi. I now recognize Bob Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to start out by saying,
Name and address, please.
that might help. 71 Church Ave. I want to start by saying thank you very much for your service. You did a phenomenal job. Kind of came as a shock, but kind of didn't, because I know you've been dealing with after some talks you and I've had and stuff, and after your statement you've made, I fully understand where you're coming from. I have a few things I want to talk about. I'm not sure when exactly it was, what date it was, but there was some renovations work, I believe at Kelly Park, that I believe, Liz, you were part of. I'm not 100% sure on that. It was with this National Grid did some renovations, so the part of the park.
I think that was a service project that was coordinated by our village administrator, Jen Moskowitz.
Okay. I wanted to kind of bring up, they did a great job on that. I'm not putting them down at all, but the swings are on there could really be replaced. They got duct tape on them. I wouldn't put a kid on one of them because it looks like they'd fall right through. I just want to bring it to light that I don't know if that's put on order or if it was just missed or something, but it might be something to put for next year.
I know that Jen was looking at catalogs for swing parts and seats and so forth, and I don't remember off the top of my head if she tried to order them or if they were unavailable or what happened, but we definitely knew about the issue and tried to address it.
Okay, that's great. I didn't know you guys knew about the issue. I want to talk about the curfew thing for a second. I grew up in the village. We had it then. My son grew up in the village. I have friends that have teenagers that are growing up in this village that are very thankful for that curfew law because it helps them keep their kids safe inside at 10 o'clock. The police have the right to ask them, hey, it's after curfew, I want to get home. They don't really do anything. They just kind of ask them to kind of nudge them home. If they don't go home, that's when they take action, which is what that should happen. But they have that tool in their hand that they can do it. Without that tool, they're dead in the water. One thing I wanted to also mention about the call motion that Ben, you brought up in this meeting. You have like previously mentioned, department heads and so on and so forth that take the brunt of those calls. Do you need to know that I called about a dead cat in my front yard that sat there for 3 days? I don't think you need to know that. So they can filter that crap out. And I understand that. And that's how it should happen. Then the stuff about policy that's important can be brought up to the mayor, whoever department head or whatever, then they bring it forward if they don't take care of it, or if they feel it needs to be addressed to the board. I don't believe micromanaging the village like that is your job. I believe it is the employee's job, the department heads and so on and so forth. Let them do their job for once. One last thing I wanted to kind of bring up was last meeting, I had asked a question that I believe offended you guys, which I wasn't intended to offend anybody. I was legitimately asking for a list of things that you guys have on the table and a list of the accomplishments you guys have had in the last 2 years. Wasn't trying to offend anyone. I understand, Sean, you were with the other board. I get all that stuff. I'm just trying to compare my notes with notes you guys are giving me. That's all I'm trying to do. If I have to foil it, I will foil it. But I was hoping to hear it from the board first before I can go forward with that. One thing I do want to mention is public comment is also for people to bring up their addresses and complain about things. Am I correct on this?
Yes. I also want to warn you that you're getting short on time.
So why do we need you guys to record the calls? That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bush. I'll recognize Rebecca Shepherd. And you're still muted, Rebecca. You have to unmute yourself.
No, I'm not.
Okay, good.
This is Rebecca Shepherd's husband, John Battenfield. They live at 95 Eastern Avenue in Ballston Spa. I'm sorry I'm using her computer because for whatever reason, I have no internet this evening. I tried, I don't know how many times to get it up and running, but I just couldn't get it going. So I'm using her computer. And I just want to say, Larry, that, or Mr. Mayor, that it's not often that we have the opportunity to have a mayor of the caliber of a Larry Woolbright. You will be deeply missed, and we are very grateful. And I am, from the bottom of my heart aches for the disservice that you had to endure from the trustees of the Village of Ballston Spa. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I will now recognize Frank Rossi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Frank Rossi, Jr., 63 Saratoga Avenue, Apartment B, Ballston Spa, New York. First, on a personal level, Larry, if I may, I remember our first conversation about when you wanted to run back in 2019. We were fresh off of kind of the Boy Haven dispute in Milton and everything. And we kind of made the agreement to disagree on how certain things played out in that. I wasn't necessarily sold on you in terms of, you came across as a Republican per se, but you seem sometimes more left than right, but you really did come across in the end to me as a very bipartisan guy. I actually am a libertarian when you really get down to my true politics in life. And the more I saw you, the more I talked to you, the more I realized we shared a lot in common in our approach and our mentalities in life. And I learned to really appreciate you. And the thing that's interesting about this whole mess here is that you are somebody that can unite partisans into the bipartisan nature of things. And for anybody that sort of got in your way of doing such a thing, they really need to take a look at themselves in the mirror, because if they claim that they are bipartisan or willing to work with people, they are failing at that. If you want to see what a real bipartisan person is, or a unifier is, look in the upper left-hand corner, probably on your screen, and you'll see him sitting right there, Larry Woolbright. To lose you is to lose that cooperative nature. You wanted to get rid of political parties in the village completely. You were undermined by one of these trustees, especially. We're not going to go to names at this point, but you know who, you know why, you know how. And it wasn't necessary. And it put us into even a more contentious election than I can ever remember, when it was supposed to have the opposite effect. And I know that deeply hurts you to see what was a great intention on your part backfire miserably because of that. It was not fair to you. It was not fair to the village to have to endure what we all had to go through in that. I foiled those documents, the stuff back and forth to the clerk and everything else. It was some of the worst abomination I have ever seen in terms of conduct by the people that, may have ultimately won, or their representation. But this is what we were supposed to be avoiding. We didn't. It got worse. And it wasn't your fault, Larry. It wasn't. I just want you to realize that fact. The fact that you reached back and even thanked Pete and Rory shows the kind of stand-up person you are right now tonight. And that to me was the most touching moment. Besides you getting a little choked up there, to hear you thank those guys for what they've done and had to endure by staying involved as a favor to you. You're absolutely right. But not everybody would have reached back to remember to thank them for that. And that's incredible by you. I have an example here of something that we need to avoid. I was going to bring it up until or before this whole thing developed tonight. There's a letter that was sent to the Mohican Hill seniors, the heading from the desk of Ben Baskin, trustee, Village of Ballston Spa, despite the return address being his home address. And in the letter, he's introducing himself, new trustee, blah, blah, blah. You can call me, email me, or we can meet in person at your convenience. I am the senior services contact person for the Board of Trustees, all lowercase in the senior services contact person. But we've asked the question. I asked Stephanie, and I believe Gina may have asked you, Larry, do we have such a thing in our village? Because damn if I knew that existed. I've lived here long enough. I'd never heard of it. It doesn't. And to state that to gain access or some sort, residential access or access by phone or whatever, under false pretenses of what your title is or isn't, that's ethically wrong, if not legally wrong. We just seem to do these things without thinking of their implications on people in our village. These are seniors. We've gone through the whole thing of they don't trust people to come onto that property that don't belong there. We go through this every election year, and then we have a letter like this come through, and they're honestly, to put it as one of them said to us, creeped out by the letter. Ben,
Frank,
do better.
Need to cut you short because we got several other people waiting
Yeah,
to talk.
absolutely. I just wanted, I was going to close at this point to say one more time, Larry, thank you. We appreciate you and we love you.
Thank you for your comments. I'll now recognize Mandy Ryder, who's still muted. There you go.
Larry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Larry, I know it's late. I just wanted to say,
Heritage Place.
can you hear me?
Yeah, 9 Heritage Place.
I'm sorry, 9 Heritage Place, Boston Spa. It's a little bit emotional. I just want to say that I thank you for all you have done for the village. I have become involved more and more over the years after, Mark died. And I think you are the most incredible mayor person. And I appreciate all that you have done for our village. I totally get where, you're done. You and Meg deserve to just relax. And, but I'm just sad to see you go. You have been a wonderful, wonderful influence in our village. And I meet with, 13, 14, 15 people every week. And we love you. We think you do a great job. And I'm sorry to see you go, but good for you, Larry. You do what you have to do.
Thank you very much, Mandy.
You're
And the
welcome.
good news is my backyard will start to look less like an overgrown jungle soon. You won't have to look at that mess for much longer. I'll recognize Dick Duffy now.
You got me, Larry?
Yep, you're on.
Dick Duffy, 21 Division Street, Ballston Spa, New York. Larry, all I can say tonight is wow. I'm totally amazed, devastated. I think you've done one heck of a job for the village. I commend you for what you have done, what your visions were for the future. I'm very disappointed in our board that it got to this point because we're supposed to be a village of friends. We should be able to work together. Obviously, that has been proven wrong. I'll be honest with you right now, you're going to be missed. I hope you still stay active in the village. I'm contemplating right now, you appointed me to a comprehensive board and I'm really waiting to see what this board's moves are, whether I want to stay on that committee or not, because I'm very disappointed at this time. But Larry, thank you very much again. I really appreciate what you've done for our village.
Thank you, Dick. And I believe our last hand is Keith Lewis. I don't see any more after that. I'll recognize Keith Lewis.
Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street, Ballston Spa, New York. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank you for your service. I'm extremely sad you've reached this decision, and I wish it could have been different. But I too suspected, as staff has been added, support staff around you, I've often thought it was extremely dangerous that as a village became more structured and this staff was added without the mayor's compensation being adjusted accordingly to the amount of time and energy required to oversee these adjustments, especially given most of the people added were making 4 times your rate of pay. I had grave concerns. I understand your desire to leave, and frankly, I've heard the same sentiment from every other person on that board at one point or another for the identical reasons. Every person in every job must weigh the pros and cons of their position. And I don't know why anyone would take on the role of mayor or a board member for that amount of grief that all of you endure at one point or another. I don't believe this village can keep good people in those positions until we figure out how to provide more benefits than we provide liabilities. And I hope moving forward, the board will create a more sustainable relationship, because not everyone is going to have the leisure to volunteer. And as we see in this situation, the mayor's list of liabilities became longer than his list of pros, and I don't blame him whatsoever. But I don't know why anyone else would stay there either. And I think it's important for us not to ask our public servants to give up their life completely in order for them to serve. Mayor, thank you very much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, and I wish you much, much success.
Thank you, Keith. I just want to say that money was not a factor for me in any sense of the imagination. I knew this was essentially a volunteer situation. And also my motivation for creating the village administrator position was hopefully to make it possible for people not to have to work full-time in order to be mayor, and to make young people with careers able to do the job, because there would be the structures underneath them that could do most of the day-to-day work. So I hope we're moving in the direction where we don't need to rely only on wealthy retired people to act as mayor. I'll got a bunch more hands up now. I'll recognize Rory O'Connor. Rory, you're still muted.
Hi, Larry.
There you go.
Okay.
Address.
If I may. The famed former Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, said it best. He said, all politics is local. And so it is here in Ballston Spa. 2.5 years ago, this village was deemed by people now sitting as trustees to be doomed, financially bankrupt, with the state auditors breathing down our collective necks. We were to believe there was little hope. Then a minor miracle took place. The voters elected a man of true character, a man who disdained politics and all lies and corruption that go with the dirtiest game that we play. Larry Woolbright single-handedly went to work, brought in top quality people to help him, and took the village from a huge deficit to an equally huge $2.3+ million surplus. He consolidated debt and he reduced interest rates. He paved streets. He opened outdoor dining during COVID. He coordinated economic development surveys and plans, and was well on the way to getting the master plan and zoning laws updated. Not a bad job for 2.5 years' work, Larry. But it must be noted that all these achievements were not done without resistance, for the Board of Trustees fought his initiatives every single step of the way, demanding studies and consultants and more surveys, all spending tax dollars we did not need to spend to justify in their minds that they could make a decision and not bear responsibility for leadership, as they had the consultants and the studies to hide behind. Leaders don't hide, they lead. They make decisions, often really hard ones. Tonight, the man who led this village out of darkness made a very, very hard decision. He fought the good fight. He tried to reason and compromise, but as in all politics, reason and compromise have been lost to power and control. He didn't need this thankless mayoral job, far from it. He took it because he cares about Ballston Spa. And you know what? He resigned for the same reason. Caring as he does, he decided to let you, the people, see the government they elected run without his moderation and his leadership. He wants the village to see and hear the hypocrisy and the half-truths, and yes, the lies that are spewed out at every village board meeting with impunity and false pride. I only ask all of you hearing my voice tonight to never miss another village board meeting, never be silent when you disagree, always make your opinions known, and please, please never believe that the 4 trustees that were elected by the slimmest of margins are due any credit for Larry Wilbright's achievements. They do not deserve that honor. They will claim it for themselves, but Ballston Spa became a better and safer place to Mayor Wilbright, and I, for one, am now very afraid and also angry beyond measure that we all find ourselves here tonight. Local politics indeed. God bless you, Larry. God bless our village, and God bless America.
Thank you, Rory. And I'll recognize Bob Kavanagh, I believe. You're muted, Bob.
Yeah, I think I've got you now, Larry.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Bob Kavanagh.
I'm sorry, the address on the last one, Terry, was 199 Milton Avenue. And now Bob will give us his.
Yep, Bob Kavanagh, 20 Crestline Drive. Larry, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to sit alongside for this ride. I think it's a damn shame that it had to come to an end because of the other group of people that are here with you. Of a significant portion of the people in this picture, some of them can't find the village office. Christine was around to visit. We worried about her upstairs when she was doing the records management. Cold water in the summer. Take a hot cup of coffee with you when you go up in the colder weather, but she was the only one that put forth an effort in the village office. I saw her in there regularly. And like you said, I sat there every day. There are people in this picture that if they didn't come in and say who they were, you could probably pass them off as just a drifter because they really don't care. They'll probably find a way to make me a piece of history, and it'll be real soon because they've got to do that because they can't take the challenge. But while we were along for the ride, I certainly enjoyed the trip with you, the rest of the office staff. We've had a good time. We've done a hell of a lot for the village that wasn't happening before, and it's happening now through no thanks of anybody but you letting us go, run along, and do what needed to be done for the village. So thank you. Best of wishes to you and Meg in retirement, and we will still see you around the village. Thank you for everything you did.
Thank you, Bob, and thanks for everything you've done, as I said earlier. And I see one more hand now, and it's John with no last name on it. And John is muted. So John, you need to unmute your microphone and then tell us your name and address, please. Well, I'm sorry, John, but doesn't look like this is working. All right, then I see one more hand. Does this have something to do with feedback?
Larry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's John Romano, 61 Saratoga Avenue.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very disappointed and I'm saddened to hear that you are stepping down. I think you've done an outstanding job moving our village forward. And what you have done, and I stress you, with respect to the village finances has been nothing short of amazing. You've done that, something that I was not able to do. And I want to commend you for that sincerely. Having walked in your shoes for many years, in the same job. I know from experience, the job of mayor is by any standard of measure, extremely difficult and very time consuming. I was blessed to have a village board that worked with me. We didn't always agree. We didn't always get along with respect to some of the issues, but they were willing to work with me and listen to me. And we were able to accomplish a lot of things. I just want to say that it's a sad day for our village that our mayor feels compelled to step aside because the other elected officials care more about their own agendas than the agendas for our village. Larry, I just want to say thank you so much for what you've done. You've done an incredible job. We're all going to miss you, and good luck in the future, buddy.
Thank you very much, John. I really appreciate it. And after doing this job for 2.5 years, I have no idea in the world how you made it 24. All right, I see no more hands, so I'll end the public comment session and ask for ask
Mr. Mayor,
a motion. Who's yes?
okay. I'd like to say something if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that nobody is more surprised or more disappointed about your resignation. I think that you have been an absolutely great mayor, and I have very much appreciated and enjoyed my time working with you. I think you have done many, many fine, wonderful things for the village. First and foremost among them, helping to improve our finances. That said, I really feel compelled to say that nothing is ever built or destroyed in a vacuum. That everybody's, that, you know, the accomplishments, while there has been a lot of strife and disagreement, I don't think that, I think that the rest of the board, we have certainly, you know, we've made some progress together. That's all I'm saying. But I am, that being said, I am very, very sorry that you are resigning, and it impacts me almost more than anybody. So maybe we ought to mention to the board, to the public, what happens now. And I really am very, very sorry that you are resigning. So this does not, you know, I'm the deputy mayor, but just my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure a lot of people on this call might be wondering, which is why I want to mention it, that this, what my role is now, is to oversee or help to oversee the appointment or selection of another mayor. Okay, that it does not, that I'm filling a role until that happens, but that I just want to make sure that people understand that. And is that your understanding? Larry.
Oh, is that my understanding? I really would have to ask somebody who knows something about New York State village law. I think that you have to appoint one of the four of you to act as mayor until such time as you either call a special election to elect a new mayor, or until the next regular election. And I think there might be some time limits that determine when you have one of those options and when you have both of those options, but I have no idea what they are. So you're really going to need to seek some legal advice about that. And I'm sure NICOM can tell you in a quick phone call. So thanks for your comments. I've enjoyed working with you also. And I'd like to ask for a motion that vouchers number 21.
Senior, I don't know.
01382 and 22-00338 to 22-00987 be audited and the meeting adjourned. Could I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Motion by Trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I'll second.
That was Trustee Cormos, I think. Yeah. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Meeting is adjourned. I want to thank all of the people. I think we had 59 people from the public joining us tonight, and that's an incredible, huge turnout, and we appreciate your presence and your support. And good night, everyone.